I'm not even sure what day it is. I think it's Friday. Is it Friday? It is. It's Friday, probably like the 24th or the 25th of January, something like that. So, um, time, eh? Anyway, so here I am. Do you need me? Is that Luke? My son. He just called on the cell phone. We film all these on our iPhones, which is really cool. Just on our smartphones. And Luke just called on my phone, and obviously I couldn't answer. And James is making adjustments. What are you doing? Oh, he's making adjustments. And can you guys still hear me? He's banging the mic around. There we go. I lifted it up a bit. So today, let's get back to business here. Today, we're still reading from this book. Now, every day I try to kind of explain a little bit about why I'm reading this book, and you know, this guy, Dr. David Hawkins, wrote this book, Letting Go. It was his last book. It was, in my opinion, probably the best of the best. I've read everything that he wrote, but and the reason I see it as so important is that he details, and he does it in his other books too, but he really details the levels of consciousness, and he calls them the levels of consciousness because when we become aware of what's happening inside of us, we become conscious. Awareness, a consciousness is kind of the same. And I used to think that the word consciousness had some spiritual connotation, that it was something esoteric or something outside of me, or conscious. I just want to be conscious. What does that mean? And I've realized that consciousness really is about being aware of what's happening in the moment. And for the most of my life, I was not that aware, and it's so easy to be unaware and to be kind of bumbling, and be a reaction instead of to be on course or on purpose. So when feelings would come up and I didn't know what the hell they were or how to identify them or what I was really feeling, and it was very difficult. And I knew what I wanted to feel, but I didn't know how to deal with things that were uncomfortable and stuff like that. So, and I don't think I'm that unusual. I think that most of us spend our whole lives pretending we know what's going on inside of us, and really not. And so this book is one of those books that can help us to see exactly what's happening in our emotional body, in our emotional state, and then and then let go of it, kind of rise above it, and then when we do that, we're more available to love. We're more available to serve. We're more available to enjoy life. And who wants to enjoy life? Hey, how about enjoying life? Yes. So that's the deal. So it's kind of really. I'm grateful to have this opportunity because I'm not as young as I once was, and I've had all these years of searching and reading and studying and doing my own work, and many times it took a long time to kind of lift out of my idea or my belief systems or my unconscious beliefs to a place of freedom, and it's not always there. So I'm benefiting as much, I think, as you from reading this to you. And so we've gone through a couple of chapters. We've started kind of in the lower realms. We started with the mechanism of letting go. So how do you let go? He talks about how you let go. And in the beginning, he talks about who he is. And then we go through in the lower realms, the anatomy of emotions. What are emotion? How does an emotion feel? And then we go into, I've already read through apathy and depression, and after that we read through grief, and how we normally deal with emotions is we often repress them, or suppress them, or deny them, you know, or we express them, you know, and so a bit of all of that can help in extreme emotional states, you know, to express or suppress or repress. And, you know, what do we do when we don't want to feel? We eat. Sometimes we drink alcohol, we do drugs, we have sex so that we don't have to feel emotions or to change the feeling of the emotions. All of these things change the emotion, suppress it, you know, instead of actually feeling it. And freedom is in the feeling and in the letting go. But if we don't know what the hell it is, it's hard to feel it. So, you know, a certain amount of understanding, I think, is important, and awareness is power. And so that's the deal. That's why I'm reading this. So we all become a little more conscious. And so through this and actual, you know, a practice of meditation on a regular basis, meditation is self-care. You know, I just had a man in the store a few minutes ago, and I said, do you meditate? He said, no, but I should. He's just coming from the gym next door. He works out. I said, well, you know, meditation, I think, is as important as working out. He said, you know, I know that. And then he just confided in me. He said, you know, my daughter passed away recently, and we've been going to therapy, and they've been sharing with him about self-care. And because I used those words, I said, meditation is self-care. And he said, I get it. But sometimes, you know, when things like that happen, we don't want to go into those emotions, and we push them back with maybe spending too much time in the gym, or maybe, you know, doing things to avoid. So anyway, meditation helps us to feel into things as well. And so here we go. We're in chapter 9, page 138, and this chapter's on pride. He says, in common parlance, conversation parlance, pride is often thought to be a good thing. However, if we take a good look at it, we will see that just like I can hear Marlon. Can you guys hear that? Marlon is in the back working on tables. He's drilling. That's a good sound. Okay. In common parlance, pride is often thought to be a good thing. However, we take a good look at it, we see that, just like all other negative feelings we have discussed so far, pride is devoid of love. Consequently, it is essentially destructive. Pride may take the form of overvaluation, denial, playing the martyr, being opinionated, arrogant, boastful, inflated, one-upping, haughty, holier than thou, vain, self-centered, complacent, aloof, smug, snobbish, prejudiced, bigoted, pious, contemptuous, selfish, unforgiving, spoiled, rigid, patronizing, judgmental, and in milder forms, pigeonholing. So pride can have those kind of attributes. I have somebody in my family who I sent a little meditation thing to last night, and he responded by saying that yes, he meditated, because my question was, you know, did you like the little meditation stool? Because we had a little video, and you know, do you meditate? And it wasn't just that. It was the same question I sent to a lot of people. I sent to him, of course I meditate and I pray, he said, and he talked about his belief in a certain religion, you know, and he's very, he's very Christian based, and but with a certain pride, and which I believe sometimes is the downfall of a lot of religious believers, is they sometimes feel that because they have a belief, it makes them better than others, or their belief is a special belief, and it's kind of, they have a pride in their sacrifice, or their, you know, their yeah. And I felt that in his answer. I love him, you know, and so it's hard, because that idea kind of separates us, and I think that's what we're going to see here in his book, is that pride does that. Intellectual pride leads to ignorance, and spiritual pride is the main block to spiritual development and maturing in everyone. Wow, spiritual pride. That's what I felt from my actually my good friend and family. Was spiritual pride. Religious pride is self-identification with the righteous and having the only true way. Is the basis of all religious wars, rivalry, and dismal occurrences such as the Inquisition. So that's what what I sensed from was religious pride. Of course I meditate. Me and Jesus, baby, and I'm all about Jesus, and it just not from an exclusive way, not from I think that if we actually study the teachings, they're more inclusive, and religion has created an exclusivity, and people fall into that exclusivity and a better than idea with many religions. So something to watch for. Is I believe the teachers of the founders of many of the religions weren't exclusive. They weren't focused on only one right way. I think they were inclusive. My opinion. Touchy subjects getting into talking about religious beliefs, but here we go. All right. Intellectual pride leads to ignorance. Spiritual pride is the main block to spiritual development and maturation in everyone. Maturation in everyone. Religious pride is by self-identification with the righteous and having the only true way. Is the basis of all religious wars, rivalry, and dismal occurrences such as the Inquisition. The biggest downfall of all is religious pride, and considering oneself entitled to kill others who don't share one specific belief. I guess, in all of us, the prideful feeling, I have the answers, blocks our growth and development. It is interesting that the egotistical part of the mind is willing to sacrifice the whole remainder of a person for its own sake. Wow. Rather than admit to being wrong, people will literally give up the life of their body itself and sacrifice any aspect of life on the altar of pride, i.e., religious wars and crusades. Male pride, about those programs that our society considers masculine, blocks the emotional and psychological inner development of most men in our society. Some women are now joining the ranks of chauvinism, which only compounds the problem and it intensifies the battle of the sexes. Just recently, actually, with some friends, I had they did something, and I imagined that I knew better than them, and it distanced us, and I had to clean that up. I had to get in touch with them and say, you know what, I don't know. I apologize for even imagining that I know better. So it was great to let go of that. But it, boy oh boy, it can come up. Even I've done so much work, and my experience was that what they had done is not going to work, and they're going to be in trouble, and they'll and not my business, and how I don't know. How do I know? I don't know shit. So I let go of it. I love those guys, and so I just let it go. So we watch where being right or wanting to be right or saying that we're right blocks us from our friends and can separate us from people. And I've done it too many times. So just want to share that with you. Vulnerability of pride is the subtitle here. The prideful person is constantly on the defensive because of the vulnerability of inflation and denial. Conversely, the humble person cannot be humiliated, for they are immune to vulnerability, having let go of pride. In its place, they have an inner security and self-esteem. Many people try to substitute pride for genuine self-esteem. However, genuine self-esteem does not actually arise until pride is relinquished. That which inflates the ego, does not result in inner strength. On the contrary, it increases our vulnerability and overall level of fear. When we are in a state of pride, our energy is dissipated by the constant preoccupation with defending our lifestyle, our vocation, or neighborhood, or clothes, or year and make of car, or ancestry, or country, or political and religious belief systems. There is a tireless preoccupation occupation with appearance and what other people will think, and so there is a constant vulnerability to the opinion of others. When pride and self-inflation have been relinquished, there is an inner security that takes their place. When we no longer feel called upon to defend our image, or criticism and attacks from others diminish and finally stop. When we let go of our need for validation or to prove ourselves right, then the challenges against us fall away. Wow, that's what I guess what I was just saying. Mm. This brings us to one of the basic laws of consciousness. One of the basic laws of consciousness. Here we go. Defensiveness invites attack. A law of consciousness. Defensiveness invites attack. An examination of the nature of pride facilitates letting go of it, as it is no longer valued. It is seen for what it is, in truth, weak. The dictum, pride goeth before the fall, prevails. Pride is thin ice, a poor substitute for that rock-like real strength that comes from courage, acceptance, and peace. Wow, eh? Is there such a thing as healthy pride? When we talk of healthy pride, we're referring to self-esteem, an inner awareness of one's true value and worth. This inner awareness is different from the energy of pride. Self-awareness of one's true value is characterized by lack of defensiveness. Once we have consciously contacted the truth of our real beingness, once we have consciously contacted the truth of our real beingness, the nature of our inner self, within all of its true innocence, greatness, and nobility of the human spirit, we no longer need pride. We just know that we are, and this self-knowing is sufficient for us. That which we truly know never needs defense, and is different from the energy of pride that we are discussing in this chapter. I know that I am that I am. Yes. Let's look at some of the kinds of pride with which we have been programmed and see how they bear up under examination. Pride of family, pride of country, pride of accomplishment are typical examples that come to mind. In pride, is pride really the loftiest of human emotions? The very fact that it is characterized by defensiveness proves otherwise. When we have pride in our possessions or in some organizations with which we identify, we feel obligated to defend them. Pride in our ideas and opinions leads to endless arguments, conflict, and woe. Pride in our ideas and opinions leads to endless conflict, arguments, and woe. A higher feeling state than pride is that of love. A higher feeling state than pride is that of love. If we love all of the things noted above, family, country, accomplishments, that means there's no question of their worth in our mind. We no longer have to be on the defensive. When true recognition and knowledge replace opinion, which is part of pride, there's no room for argument. Excuse me. Wow. Sneezes are great, aren't they? It's like a whole head orgasm. Wow. What do you guys think of this? Anybody have any comments on pride? Does any of this make any sense? I hope there's somebody gets a benefit from it. If not, I sure do. It's awesome. We no longer have to be on the defensive. When true recognition and knowledge replace opinion, which is part of pride, there is no room for argument. Our sheer love and appreciation for something is a solid position that cannot be assailed. Pride, because it is a vulnerable position, always implies that somewhere there is a doubt that needs to be cleared up. And the opponent quickly centers on that doubt. When all doubts have been removed, opinions and pride disappear. There is a subtle inference of apology in pride. There's a subtle inference of apology in pride. Interesting. Oh, wow. As though the thing in itself was not good enough to stand on its own merit. That which is worthy of our love and respect hardly needs an apologist. Pride infers subtly that there is room for debate, and that the worth of something is open to question. It's interesting. I was just thinking about, my own work or purpose in and the whole thing around what we're doing with helping people create meditation spaces, and I get that it doesn't have to be defended. I don't even feel, any defense. I feel some urgency to share the information, but yeah, I get that. I just love the idea. And maybe it's okay for me to just share the love that I have for the idea instead of sometimes defending it. What do you think, James? Yeah, just love this idea. I mean, I've written that down 100 times. I love the idea of a meditation space in every home, in every place of work. What do you guys think? Anybody watching this meditate? Say yes. Any meditators? No meditators? Maybe. How about anybody watching this think they should meditate? Anyway, where was I? I lost my page. Oh, when we truly love something and thereby become one with it, is because we see its intrinsic perfection. In fact, its faults are part and parcel of its perfection. For all that we see in the universe is in the process of becoming. For all that we see in the universe is in the process of becoming. In that process, its perfect evolution is part of that perfection. Thus, the half-unfolded flower is not an imperfect flower that needs defense. On the contrary, its blossoming is proceeding with precise perfection according to the laws of the universe. Likewise, each and every individual on the planet is unfolding, growing, learning, and reflecting that same perfection. We might say that the unfoldment of the evolutionary process is proceeding precisely according to cosmic law. Isn't that interesting? Then, if that's the case, there are no bad people, or wrong. Everybody is unfolding as they should, and it builds a case for multiple lifetimes, doesn't it? Because I think that we are evolving, and as souls, and yeah. So I think it's then very possible to love everyone exactly where they are, no judgment. Because how the hell can I judge anybody? I don't know anything. One of the drawbacks about the position of pride, as we have said, is its vulnerability. Vulnerability then invites attack. Therefore, in society, we witness that prideful people draw criticism, and their vulnerability is what accounts for the saying, "Pride goeth before the fall." In the biblical account, it was Lucifer's pride that was his Achilles' heel, despite the great standing that he had acquired. Wow. Humility is the next subtitle. Cafe Bino. I love Cafe Bino. And their Americanos. Humility. Yeah, I'll read a couple more pages. It's a long chapter. Humility. The attempt to suppress pride out of guilt simply does not work. It is not helpful to label the energy of pride as a sin and to suppress it in ourselves out of guilt, to hide it, or to pretend that we do not experience it. What happens is that the energy suddenly takes on a new form, known as spiritual pride. We do not feel comfortable in the presence of those who are prideful. Therefore, pridefulness blocks communication and the expression of love. Although we love those who are prideful about specific accomplishments, we love them in spite of their pride, and not because of it. Feeling guilty about pride as a spiritual sin only locks it in, and, as we have said, is not really the answer. The real answer is merely to let go of it by examining its true nature. Once we see pride for what it is one of the easier emotions to surrender. To begin with, we can ask ourselves, what is the purpose of pride? What is its payoff? Why do I seek it? For what does it compensate? What do I have to realize about my true nature in order to let pride go without a feeling of loss? The answer is rather obvious. The smallness we feel within, the answer is rather obvious. The smallness we feel within, the more we have to compensate. The smaller we feel within, the more we have to compensate for the inner sense of inadequacy, unimportance, and valuelessness by the substitution of the emotion of pride. That explains some political leaders we know. That they, poor things, they feel so inadequate and so small inside. They have to boast and boast and boast. And say they're the best ever. The best ever. I have more empathy for one particular fella. The more we surrender our negative emotions, the less we will rely on the crutch of pride. In its place, there will be a quality that the world calls humility, and that we subjectively experience as peacefulness. True humility is distinct from the paradox of pride in one's humility. True humility is distinct from the paradox of pride in one's humility, or false modesty. Since frequently in the public arena, modesty seen frequently in the public arena. That's what I was just saying. False modesty is the pretense of self-diminishment. With a longing that others will recognize. True humility can be experienced by the person who is said to possess it, because it is not an emotion. As we have said before, the truly humble cannot be humbled. They are immune to humiliation. They have nothing to defend. There is no vulnerability, and therefore the true humble do not experience critical attacks by others. Instead, a truly humble person sees a critical verbalization by another person as merely a statement of the other person's inner problems. For instance, if somebody were to say, "You think you're pretty good, don't you?" What the truly humble person would see is that the other person has a problem with envy. And the question has no basis in reality in the first place. There is nothing to be offended by, and no need to react. In contrast, for the prideful person, this question would be viewed as, in contrast to the prideful person, this question would be viewed as an insult and lead to hurt feelings and verbal comeback, or even a violent end in some cases. Wow. Is the door open? Is it? Front door's open? Front, yeah. Well, I think that that's probably, oh no, there's a lot left. Maybe I'll read one more page. Joy and gratitude. Page 144, part of pride, joy and gratitude. Because pride is sometimes seen as a motivator of achievement, that would be its highest level substitute. What would be its highest level substitute? Okay. One answer would be joy. What is wrong with joy as a reward for successful achievement rather than pride? Pride carries with it the desire for recognition from others, and consequently there is a vulnerability to anger and disappointment. If it is not forthcoming at some point, okay, hang on. There's a vulnerability to anger and disappointment if it's not forthcoming at some point. I see, they don't get recognized. If we achieve a certain goal for the pleasure, enjoyment, and love of accomplishment, and the inner joy that it brings to us, we are invulnerable to the reactions of others. We can recognize our proneness to pain by looking at the kind of reaction we're hoping to elicit from others by our choices and behaviors. This includes mannerisms, expressions, style of dress, the kind of possessions we choose, the brand name of car we drive, the kind of home we have, the address at which we live, the schools we have attended, or which our children attend, or the labels on the products we buy. In fact, if we look at our current society, we see to what an absurd degree this pridefulness has taken place. Labels are now worn on the outside of many clothes and personal articles. It hasn't reached the level of rakes and shovels yet, but it could sooner or later. Oh, I see. So yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that there's that labels are on the outside is pride. Look what I'm wearing. Got Gucci, whatever. Pride. Brand. Yeah. Nobody has thought of it yet. But we could all carry around rakes and shovels ostensibly with designers' names emblazoned on them. This points to another one of the drawbacks of pride, the exploitatory how we can be exploited by it, which exposes us. Pridefulness means that we can be manipulated with great ease. In return for an absurdity, a great deal of money is lifted out of the pocketbooks. The situation is currently comical, and that people take great pride in how much they have been exploited. It is a current status symbol among certain circles to brag about how much one has paid for certain things. When we remove the glamour from it, we might say that the person was sort of stupid. He really got suckered in, or was rather naive and just didn't know any better. The pride of snobbishness is probably the most supercilious of all. Does ostentatiously really impress? Actually, no. The response that we see in one of the the doc uses a lot of big words, honestly. People get a charge out of the superficial glamour, but underneath they do not truly respect it, because they know what it really is. When we settle for the pridefulness of ostentation, we impress no one. This dynamic reveals itself during a trip to Canada to visit a home of a wealthy individual who mentioned above also had an expensive burglar alarm system. Pride, like all the other negative emotions, engenders guilt. Guilt engenders fear. Oh my gosh. Fear means potential loss. Pride, therefore, always means a loss of peace of mind. The opposite of prideful acquisitiveness is simplicity. Simplicity does not mean poverty of possessions. Rather, it is a state of mind. Another individual is, as a person, she represents absolute simplicity. Her possessions reflect what the world has brought to her, and she takes joy in their beauty. Consequently, never a single criticism is made of her, nor do others express envy. It is not what we have that matters, but how we hold it, how we frame it in our consciousness, and its meaning to us. Incidentally, this woman's entire estate is totally devoid of burglar alarms or watchdogs. In fact, when this was brought to her attention, she replied, "Oh heavens, if somebody really needed something that much, they could have it." There was a correspondence between the fact that nobody ever stole anything from her and the fact that she was willing to share with others. Her invulnerability to theft was related to her lack of pridefulness about her possessions. Possessiveness and attachment occur as a consequence of pride. Attachment is, therefore, a potential cause for suffering, because attachment brings about fear of loss, and with loss we go back into apathy, depression, and grief. If we are prideful of a car and somebody steals it, we'll experience anguish, pain, and suffering. If instead we loosely hold the car, emotionally speaking, and we enjoy its beauty and perfection, and we feel grateful for having it, its loss will bring about only minor disappointment. Gratitude is one of the antidotes of pride. If we happen to be born with a high IQ, we can be grateful for it rather than take pride in it. It's not an accomplishment. We were born with it. If we are grateful for what we've been given, what's been given us, and for what has been fulfilled through our God-given talents and endeavors, then we're in a peaceful state of mind and invulnerable to pain. There we go. It is a comical curiosity, the human mind, to watch how it attaches pride to anything that is prefixed by the word mine. We can have absurd pride over the most trivial things. And once we see the comedy of that, and it is not too difficult to let go of the pride involved. Some people, ironically, have the vulnerability of reverse snobbery. They take pride in bargains and thrift store conquests. I have a buddy like that. He's so like that. He just, he's so, with the coupons and all that stuff. It's really cool. And I think it's important, to keep an eye on how we spend and what we spend. But he's like, he actually talks about the deals he got all the time, how little he paid for things, with a certain amount of pride. Interesting. Okay, I start that paragraph over again. Some people, ironically, have the vulnerability of reverse snobbery. They take pride in bargains and thrift store conquests. Their personal opinion of people who pay excessive prices for things is that they are sheep to be sheared, and they rehearse the quote, "A fool is soon parted with his money." In this thrift store snobbery crowd, the status symbol is an incredible bargain. In fact, they are often in competition with each other to see who will find the best bargains. It is funny to observe that an article of clothing hanging in a thrift shop has no value at all until it becomes mine. Instantly, great value is attached to it. The difficult side of prefixing things with the word mine is the pride that goes with that sense of ownership. This makes us feel called upon to defend everything we label as mine. We can reduce our vulnerability by letting go of the desire to possess. Instead of saying mine, we can use the word a, uh, not my shirt, but a shirt. Thus, we will notice that if we view one of our thoughts as an opinion instead of my opinion, the feeling tone changes. Why would people get so hot under the collar about their opinions? Why do people get so hot under the collar about their opinion? People get so hot under the collar about their opinions. It's just because they have that sense of mine. If opinions are viewed instead as only an opinion, then there's no longer the vulnerability to prideful anger. Cool. So that's it, guys. I'm on page 148, and there's a lot here in pride, tons. Hopefully you've ordered this book and you got a copy of it, and you're reading it, and because it's really powerful, And I don't know about you. Maybe one time through is enough, but for me, this kind of material requires regular study, and it's been a lifetime of study actually, and so I'm pretty grateful for that, and pretty grateful for all the great books that I have. There's a list here that James has put up with some of the books that you can order through us. They're kind of my picks, the books that I've loved, and this is one of them as well, Think and Grow Rich. And so check that out. A couple other quick things. If you'd like, go onto our website and have a look at our meditation stools and all the stuff that we have there. Really, the practical side of things is that that's what kind of keeps the doors open. The practical side of it. I have to stay connected to that. And got lots of great fabrics and singing bowls and all kinds of stuff. And online, a lot of it's on like at half price. So, we want to move some stuff for sure this month. And so we can fit into the whole system. Pay the landlord and, pay our staff and get to stay here. So that's all part of it. So hopefully you find something that you like in our collection, and maybe you can have it at home, not too pridefully, but still have it at home, enjoy it. Also, we have a little Patreon page. If you like what we're doing, and we plan to continue doing this for a long, long time. I've got a list of books we're going to read on top of this one, and carrying this message of what we call Project Awakening. Our vision is to lift the vibration of the planet one meditator at a time. So you can go check out our Patreon page and see meditation 6:30, and we have a little group meditation. It's a lot of fun. Come and join us, and so I'd love it if you share our posts, subscribe to us on YouTube and all of that kind of thing. And I want to remind you one more thing. WUB is coming up. It's an amazing event that we're supporting. We're going to be part of. One of them, there's going to do one in Edmonton on the 9th of February, and a whole day event. It's really, really cool. And I think we'll put a link on this as well. And there's lots of links on our pages. And a whole day event in Calgary. I think you could do both. And it would be, I think repetition is important. So to go do both. It's it would be like, going to the Calgary Stampede and getting on a ride twice. If the ride's really fun, it's nice to go back twice. So what will be like that? An amazing, life-changing love experience. So that's it. Love you guys, and it's Friday afternoon. We'll be back with another reading Monday. Take the weekend off of our readings. But, I know one other thing. We like to interview people that are making a difference. If you have some ideas of people that are making a difference in Calgary or anywhere in the world, and you think it would be a nice idea for us to interview them, send us your